Hi guys, it's Theresa from the Canned Peaches Project. I'm out of the kitchen today. I kicked Alex out of the apartment so I could film with my plants, which is fun for me to hang out with them while I'm doing this. Today we're making a recipe from Višnja Tofel. She was a Croatian woman and the grandmother of my friend Gretchen. The recipe we're doing of hers is exactly what I think of when I think of a family heirloom recipe. I have never received one that is more of this can only come from this family, and I've never really seen anything like it before. Their family calls this either a graham cracker cake or a Mimica Cake. Mimica is the name of Višnja's cousin. During World War II, Višnja, her mother, and Mimica, they had to flee Croatia, and they lived in Berlin for a few months. They lived in a really small apartment that had no oven, it had no stove, and they were living entirely off of rationed food, but they still were craving cake, as happens. So they were able to come up with a small way to make a cake that relieved their cravings. And I'm so touched by that during World War II, these three women were able to bunker down and make something to give them a little bit of happiness and a little bit of relief from what was happening outside. What you're probably wondering, and what I'm definitely about to tell you, is how does one go about making a cake with no stove, no oven, and graham crackers? Well, it's the magic of basting, and also the magic of frosting and rum. The cake is made by stacking graham crackers on top of each other, basting each layer with a milk and rum mixture, and then putting frosting in between each layer. And as I say rum, I'm thinking too because you don't have to have rum. In fact, the nature of this recipe is to use whatever you have around. All right, let's get to it. Take us to the recipe, me. All right, step one for making the graham cracker cake is gonna be to make the frosting. It's a very simple frosting and it's easiest done in a mixer. You can do it by hand if you don't have a mixer, absolutely. That's how they would have made it, for sure, is just by hand. I do have a mixer, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so it is a 1/4 cup of soft butter. It should just be kind of squishy like this. That's how you know it's good to go. We're gonna do 1 cup of powdered sugar. This is a tablespoon of dark cocoa powder. You can use regular cocoa powder. The black cocoa powder is cool because it's just extra alkalized. So it's this really dramatic dark black and it looks like an Oreo. Like that's the stuff they use to make Oreos. And I happen to have some kicking around, so we're gonna toss that in here. And then last, and by no means least, we're gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Feel free to get wild with this, make it however you think you want it to be. Most importantly, with what you have around. That's really what this is about. It's about making sweets and treats with what you have in your house. So that's all in the mixer and we're gonna get it mixing. All right, so the frosting is mixed for a few minutes and it's real thick. It's sort of like almost like a clay. We want it really thick for building the graham cracker cake, but I'm actually gonna add a splash of milk because I think mine turned out a little thicker than I want it to be. So bear that in mind when you're making yours. It could use a splash of milk or two. But you still want it nice and thick because frosting's always kind of mortar for any cake, but it's especially mortar for this one. All right, cool. This is looking just about perfect. Yeah, so it's this really cool dark black, kind of like, yeah, looks like wallpaper paste. All right, and step 2 for making graham cracker cake is making the basting liquid that goes on each layer. So the idea of the cake is that each layer of graham cracker gets some basting liquid, and that softens the cracker and makes it more like a cake layer instead of a cracker layer. So it's really kind of the genius part of this recipe. So for my basting liquid right now, I'm going to be using 2 tablespoons of anisette because that is what I have around. The original recipe calls for rum. You can use vodka, you could use bourbon, you could totally leave the liquor out of there and do coffee, or just do straight milk. And then we're also going to be doing 2 tablespoons of milk in with the anisette. Do this right before you're about to make it because if you sit milk and liquor around for too long, they can start curdling. All right, cool. So we have our basting liquid ready to go. you don't have a little brush, you could just try to be really delicate with a spoon and do this. Alright. Here comes the fun part, building this thing. Alright, so this is what basting a graham cracker looks like. You maybe never thought you were going to be basting a graham cracker in your life, but here you go. Alright, so once you get an even layer on there, you're going to take a swipe of your frosting. Spread it on. And you'll see that like the cracker is already starting to soften a little bit. That's the stuff. And if you know you like a lot of frosting, put a lot on there. I'm a little conservative with frosting. I don't like too much, so I'm gonna go kind of light. Alright, layer one, done. Alright, so I'm building this cracker just one single layer, such as like. The family that this recipe comes from, their son who makes it all the time told me that he often likes to build it in a crosshatch pattern. There we go. Man, I tell you what, graham crackers, for being for children, they sure are hard to open. Okay. Alright, so I have more building material here. So he says he likes to build it like a crosshatch so that it can be square. So if you're making this for like a big party, see what that looks like. So you'd be doing the same thing I'm doing. You should be doing like that. And you know what though? You can do whatever you want. You know, like maybe you could do like something cool like this and then like build them in there and then build a triangle going up. As much as they are graham crackers, they're also imagination blocks. So dream big. Okay, so I built it about 1.5 packages worth, so it's pretty tall. I'd say that's probably like 3 inches tall or so. Yeah, and like you could just keep going. You can keep going as long as you have confidence. I cleaned up the sides a little bit, so like I just cleaned it up with my offset. If you want to frost the outsides, do it. I'm content with like this much frosting on it. So I'm just kind of spinning it around, cleaning up the outside so there's not like frosting coming out everywhere. And then I like a little bit of salt on top of it. Nuts could be really good on this too. Whatever you feel like, or just graham crackers and frosting and the basting liquid so it tastes like a cake. Alright, this is gonna go into the fridge for about an hour to set up, and then we're gonna try it! Alright, now it's time for the main event in which we cut into the beast, into the graham cracker castle, the Mimica Cake. Okay, so it's been in the fridge for about 1 hour, so it can set up. Let's get into and take off a slice. Oh, look at that! Those nice little tidy layers. It's like a hip little naked cake. Let's try a piece of this. Here we go. Oh, that's good. Super tasty. I was a little worried that the anisette that I used would be like way too punchy, but it's actually really perfect. It's really good. Cool. A little treat from people who were refugees during World War II and needed something sweet to eat. I love this recipe, and like it really is the epitome of a family heirloom recipe. Like this is a recipe that came entirely from their family, and I've like really never made or eaten anything quite like it before. So thanks for watching, and give it a go. Do, 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 do.